list. Shout out to my NCA family. Definitely missed you guys in Dallas this year. But yeah, so I love training very much. I think it's an important part of running any successful proposal center of excellence, and not just for our proposal professionals, but also for our business development department, and really our companies and organizations as a whole, right? Because especially for this topic of color reviews, we're pulling from across the company from a variety of different business units and subject matter areas, and having these people come in to participate in our proposal activities. And sometimes they're very well versed and they've been a part of proposals before, and sometimes they are engineers, and sometimes they are people that plug things in and keep lights running in different customer situations, and they don't understand what the purpose is or what's being asked of them. So in this training, I would call this more of a 101. So for those of you that are seasoned proposal folks, some of this is definitely going to be old hat, but the way that I approach this when I do this for the companies that I support is I really just kind of start at the beginning. I do a who's who of the proposal team. I talk about the process itself and the tools and the artifacts that we use to get to where we need to be to have a meaningful review. Because it's not like we just decide at some point, we're like, you know what, let's have a review. We have to have created the appropriate artifacts. We have to have done due diligence in other areas of proposal planning and development to be able to get what we need out of a color review. And we'll talk about what our outcomes from these reviews should be also. So it would help if I'm on the right screen. There we go. So again, objectives: to understand the proposal lifecycle and the players in it, the purpose of the color reviews, what each color review really means. We use the Shipley kind of based process in most areas. And then what do we do after a review, and how do we take all that information and use it to improve our proposals? Your basic proposal team structure could look like this, depending on the size of the effort and the size of the company you work for. These are the typical players that you'll see that are part of that process and part of the reviews as well. And you see down there toward the bottom, I've got it bolded out, the reviewers, because that's what we're talking about today. But if you have a large opportunity, maybe you've broken it out into volume leads and section leads and things like that. So there is the potential for the proposal team to be a very large group of people. I'm not going to, so again, this training I do, I'm sorry, I did not design it just for you. This is a training that I do for lots of different organizations. So I'm not going to read all of this, but these are kind of the definitions of all of those people on that prior list I just showed you and what their roles and responsibilities are. So we are all familiar with what the proposals manager does, executive leadership. They come in and they participate in certain parts and pieces on an as needed basis. The capture manager is obviously the lead of the opportunity and effort. The BD manager, it's usually the person that brought the opportunity into the company. We talked about on larger opportunities being able to assign separate leads that flow up to the proposal manager, like a book boss or a volume lead, specific section leads, your section authors, people that are responsible for the content. The review team, your pricer and any other supportive proposal people, the graphics, production, desktop publishing, and editing. So when we're getting ready for proposals, we always build out a strategy. And again, I'm saying all of this because without these pieces done, your reviews will be less meaningful and you will not be able to get the feedback that you need to put out a winning proposal. We have got to have a strategy, and that strategy really starts in capture, where those compelling pieces are coming together. The proposal manager guides to make sure that those compelling pieces end up in the document, but also maintaining compliance as well. So we have to identify those major components and how they're going to be presented to convey our offering to the government. How we're going to be using graphics, incorporating those strengths and features and benefits. And so once we've kind of gotten this strategy ironed out, when we go to lead a review session, this is what we're going to be telling our reviewers. Hey, this is what we intended to be in our document. And so this is what we want you to have your eyes out for. Obviously compliance, because I think that that always comes first, right? But then to make sure that they understand what our messaging was really supposed to say and show, how we're mitigating risks, and really just having the compelling pieces in there. So again, this is old hat. We all know how to shred an RFP for the most part, but sometimes people we have coming in as a reviewer, I know I've seen my proposal managers, when they're getting ready for a review, they'll send out an email, you know, a week or so in advance, and they say, hey, you've been identified as a reviewer for this opportunity. Here are the solicitation documents. Please familiarize yourself with them prior to your review. We'll give you your assignments, you know, here in a couple days. And for an engineer or some other subject matter expert that does not do this day to day, they're like, you know, you give them like a 200-page solicitation and they're like, oh my God, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to start. And it's not realistic to expect them to read 200. I don't want them to read 200 pages. I want them to read the parts and pieces that I'm going to rely on them to come in and be a reviewer for when it's time. So we know section C is the scope of work. That's where the government tells us, you know, what is going to be done, the offerer shall. And sometimes solicitations, we also know, are not organized alphabetically. So this may be what they call the instructions section, or the performance work statement or task areas. So it might be called different things if it's not alphabetized by letter C. And then I have letter H bolded out there because sometimes they'll stick key personnel requirements and other things in there. So I do like to have people take a look at that. And then of course, L and M. And again, may not be alphabetical, but L is our instructions, how many pages, the font size, the volumes, the sections, and the specific PWS areas or other questions they want us to respond to, and then how it's going to be evaluated. And so, you know, when I put together, that's one thing that I didn't really include in this presentation, but as a proposal manager, we typically do color review kickoffs. And so when we're kicking off a color review and we've got these people who we've invited to be reviewers on that kickoff call, these are also the sections that I'm going to go back over. I want them to read it on their own and familiarize themselves. And then I'm going to go back over the specific elements that I really want them to hone in on my color review kickoff. Another artifact that we create is our outline template. And I like to provide this to reviewers too sometimes, because it kind of does give them an idea of how we have broken out all of these requirements and put them into our template. So these artifacts, again, if we don't create them prior to reviews, we're not doing our due diligence and setting ourselves up for a meaningful review session. Compliance matrix, another tool you can provide your reviewers. I love a good compliance matrix, but at the end of the day, the solicitation is the Bible. And so these are built by people or technology that shreds solicitations and puts them into these matrices. And there can be errors. So at the end of the day, I always want people to refer to the solicitation if they are questioning a part or piece that we have in our proposal. But these can be quick reference guides and help folks look where to find specific things within L&M and the scope of work. The annotated template. So this is a screenshot of a template that hasn't obviously been populated yet, but I love my reviewers to understand that this is where we start. So again, this is just a snapshot, but we take those L&M and scope of work C requirements and drop them in here to make sure that we are responding to every nuance, at least checking the box. And these are the things that we have to respond to. And then sometimes we'll take some of our themes and our strengths and drop those thought-provoking questions in there, which you see kind of in the yellow, to help the writers make sure that they stay on task and target for putting the things and the messaging in there that we intended to be there. So I love the reviewers to understand that this is how we start. And then as the content and as the document matures, we pull this out. And so, this kind of disappears. You can also put it in as hidden text, but I don't expect people to be that good in Word all the time. That's more of a proposal manager tool. But so again, old hat for some of you, but I think it's important for people who don't always participate in color reviews to understand what all of these are. Here's a sample calendar. This is the quick reference guide if you are asked to be a reviewer and you need to know when your time is going to be committed. You can always look at the calendar that the proposal manager puts together to see when you're going to be on the hook for providing that support, and just overall what our goals are and our milestones to get to the finish line. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more in depth now about the reviews itself. We talk about the Shipley process an awful lot, but really at the end of the day, pink, red, gold is, to me, is the same thing as first, second, third. You can add as many other reviews in there as you want. You can separate volumes and kind of have them on their own review schedules, or even sections if one section is done before another. But really your goal is to just be having these reviews to cover that strategy, the compliance, and make sure that we're responsive, and also to really keep the team together and collaborative, and making sure that we're improving the proposal at every milestone. So the cadence and the style of reviews can be determined by the proposal manager and or capture manager along the way. Sometimes we'll do what we call rolling reviews. And if you all use SharePoint or other collaborative tools, you can have people just popping in every day or every other day and providing feedback on certain sections as they're ready. Some people might call that more of an agile proposal process, where you have just kind of continuous improvements being done. So I mentioned the color review kickoff. Sometimes we call that an in-brief. I am a stickler for those because, again, I think it's unrealistic to invite people who may not be as well versed in proposals as other folks and just send an email and say, here you go, here's the link to the document and here are your assigned sections. Thanks for your time. That doesn't really facilitate the probability of a meaningful review and the type of feedback you're going to be looking for. I think that, again, we want to reiterate what the requirements are. We want to reiterate what message we were trying to send and the important parts and pieces that we wanted to weave in. And then we want to give guidance on the type of feedback we want. Do we want them to use track changes? Do we want them to use comments only? And then what is a good comment? And we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes too. So really just checking for compliance, win theme inclusion, other criteria. And I love using scorecards when appropriate as well. And I'm going to show you an example of some scorecards at the back of this deck. Color review process. Obviously, we have to plan. We should try to follow that calendar and set review dates and times, like, that we can present to the team at kickoff. Obviously, those wiggle if we get an extension, or if for some reason we're just struggling and we got to shift stuff around. But really, we want to try to plan as best we can, because some of the other people that we invite as reviewers, they have day jobs. And I think it's frankly rude to send someone a meeting invite the day before you want them to participate in a very time-consuming activity and then expect to get good feedback from them and them to also not secretly hate you. So yeah, we definitely need to plan, have all of our artifacts ready for these reviews as early as possible. Prepare those documents. We as proposal managers should be in the documents as well. We're not going to just wait and let the review team find mistakes. My proposal managers are very hands-on. They are in there with their teams. They are leaving comments and feedback in real time, because I also find it embarrassing to put a sloppy document in front of a review team, especially if you have executive leadership on that review. If you're calling it a gold team document, it better be gold team ready, and it better be clean, edited, and have all the parts and pieces that we were expecting to have in there, or else you're going to get called out on it. And that, like I said, to me is embarrassing. Then we conduct the review. It's the in brief, then the review time, and then the debrief that's conducted by the proposal manager, and then the recovery period after that. And there are different strategies that we can use in recovery to help the authors. Maybe we're going to schedule one-on-ones between the reviewer and the author to make sure that they have some more detailed support, instead of just handing them a document or handing them their section with a bunch of comments in it. Maybe we can help them by scheduling a one-on-one to get them support. Maybe they need assistance with writing. Maybe they are not, they've not written many proposals. And so we're going to tag them up with an editor or with a writer to support them. So really that recovery is determined by the type of feedback you get and how mature your document is. But really to implement the changes that were suggested, or to not implement them, right? Some people have opinions, and thank you for your thoughts and feelings, but we're actually going to stick with what we had in the document. So kind of making those determinations in our recovery period. Number one objective, always compliance at the end of the day. And so, between us chickens here in proposal land, I call it cover your ass. My number one job is compliance, and I will never have a proposal come back that has failed or been kicked out because of a silly compliance thing, like wrong font size, not having a section about something that they dictated they wanted in L, the outline, the template, and checking the box type stuff. That is our job as proposal people. What we write about, we can certainly, that's why I like my proposal managers to be involved in the capture phase, to know the messaging and the solution that we're trying to propose, because we can certainly help make sure that we get all that in there. But we are not usually technical people. Don't ask me to write you a proposal about biometric scanning devices, because even though that's a core capability my company provides, and I know, I have a general idea of like how these devices work. You don't want me to write about how they're made and, how they're deployed and the software behind it and things like that. I can't. I have to rely on my subject matter experts to provide that content, and I will try to make them, look and sound as credible as possible with good grammar and active voice and stuff like that. But the compliance piece, that's number one. So that's why we want good reviewers on our team that can read the technical jargon and provide that feedback and say, hey, I don't think we've described this appropriately, or I think that we forgot to mention this part of the software or whatever. So with those reviews, after the compliance is taken care of, we really want to look against the evaluation criteria and figure out where they're going to cite our strengths and where we could get dinged on weaknesses and deficiencies. At the end of the day, compliance is, like I said, sometimes a check the box activity. Did we talk about this in our proposal? Check. Yes, we did. But then we're going to look at, what did we say in that area where we had to write about, biometric scanning devices? Were we answering what they were asking? Are we providing any innovation? Did we create any risks in their mind? But the strengths should be clearly highlighted throughout the document. We can use specific tools like call out boxes, graphics, and just theme statements to really hammer that stuff home. But we want our reviewers to be keeping an eye out for those things as well. And that's another thing back to the whole in brief where you have a color review kickoff, you want to convey these things to your reviewers so they know what they're looking for. And then just the overall quality. Is it clear and easy to read and evaluate? Does it follow, the same order in which the information was being asked in section L? Is it compelling? Are our graphics supporting, our statements? And have we used an effective proposal and persuasive writing style throughout? So I have down at the bottom, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about when we're talking about leaving good comments. So if we find weaknesses or things that we haven't written about, omissions, it's just not enough to point it out and say, oh, you didn't do that right. That's not helpful. So we need our review teams, and that's why it's important to invite appropriate reviewers. I'm not going to invite, Sally from accounting to come and review my technical proposal. We need people that understand the scope, the customer, and the mission to come and help us get it to the next level, and not just, poke us in the eye and say, oh, you screwed up. We want them to come and actually help us fix things as well. All right, so let's talk about color reviews. I always forget that I do these transitions and I'm like, oh my God, my table's empty. Just kidding. So pink team. I like to call this my perfect world because sometimes people look at this and they're like, 60%, you are a crazy woman. And that's not untrue, but this is possible. And that 60% is possible if you have done the appropriate pre-work and capture to get prepared for your proposal. So this is, and it says review of third generation mockup with first draft of all proposed elements included. That in a perfect world is what should be happening at Pink. You should have storyboarded, you should have had your black hat, you should have done your blue sheets and yellow score, like yellow review, whatever you want to call them. There's a bazillion things out there. At the end of the day, you should have a first draft, or what they're calling a third generation mockup of your proposal by Pink team. I don't. So over here in the expectations, it says bulleted text okay, and that's okay. It does hurt my soul, like hurts my feelings a little bit. If you've done the right amount of pre-work, there is absolutely no reason that you cannot have fully formed thoughts and text written. But if you are still kind of struggling and maybe you were just focusing on your themes and your strengths, maybe you've got some bullets, and I will try to live with that. But really, they need to be well thought out. They need to be reviewed and approved by the team, and you're ready to start writing. So graphs and tables and charts and stuff, graphics should be at least their second iteration, because again, those are things that we should be conceptualizing and beginning to develop in pre-work. So again, you kind of see what I'm saying here. To get to that 60%, ideal 60% by your first draft, you have to have done your pre-work and your due diligence beforehand. And so when we're looking at a typical 30-day turn, that first draft and your Pink team review is going to happen about a week or so. If you guys can go back in your minds to the previous slide where I showed you that calendar, just a sample proposal calendar, you'll see that the reviews in a 30-day turn kind of stagger about 1 week or so apart from one another. That's a realistic sort of, depending on how many pages and how technical your writing is, but typically that's a typical time period in between reviews to be able to have that kickoff, have the review time, have the debrief, and then give your writers a chance to work with the reviewers if they need to and just recover their sections. Okay, so now you're not going to be surprised when I say by red team, we're at 95%. That is not a 95% completed document. You've had a formal edit now. This is a clean and mature document. And you're able to have a more meaningful review that perhaps utilizes scorecards, like I had mentioned, and that we'll look at in a minute. So yeah, 95%. You're literally just kind of maturing things, making sure that our messaging is clear, but everything's written, everything's in there, it's compliant, there are no big holes. Okay. Again, you're seeing that time frame of about a week after pink team. Week after that, we're at gold team. My perfect world, gold team, we can hit send. That document is ready to send to the government, ideally. Now, we all know that staffing can be a pain in the butt and that, you know, pricing always waits till the last minute, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, unless there has just been a real pickle along the way that's hemmed us up, maybe we have a couple things that are just outstanding and we're literally waiting to get them from someone and we're going to just drop them in and then be done. We are not writing, we are not developing graphics. We have edited this and cleaned it up until the cows come home and she's real pretty and she's ready for the dance. Okay, so we're printing a hard copy, we're taking our highlighters and our red pens and we're ready to go. Okay, that's my perfect world, and that's what I really push and strive my teams to meet. White glove, you know, that's it. Well, it's exactly what it is, right? You put on your white glove, you run your finger along it, make sure there's no dust, and it's ready to go. That is also what I like to call final blessing. That is when I've dropped the documents into my final or submission folder on SharePoint or whatever other tool you use to for your process and everything. And I send a link to executive leadership and I say, this proposal is ready to submit. Please review all documents and, you know, give us your blessing. I'm never sending anything out the door. We do not do proposals in a vacuum. They are a team sport. So we're going to get that blessing from basically kind of the final review team, you know, before it goes out the door. So these are my perfect world milestones. This should be communicated to the review team at every color review kickoff, but you need to modify those expectations, right? So if you know that your staffing section is missing something, or, you know, if there's another section that is just more immature than another or whatever, you're going to want to let the reviewers know, because if you just put this slide in front of them or in your deck and it's a gold team review and they're thinking that it's a 100% ready to go document, and then you didn't communicate that there were a few things that were still outstanding, that's a waste of their time, because then they're going to go, oh my gosh, they forgot this. And they're going to spend all their time leaving you feedback and how to fix it and whatever, when you knew all along that we were still waiting on a couple things. So that's why these color review kickoffs are so important, because you want everybody on the same page. This is perfect world that you're seeing on the screen. You need to communicate real world and where you are with your percentages and expectations to your review teams. Okay. But this is a good rule of thumb. If you're a proposal manager or a leader, this is what you're striving for. Okay. Here's a sample pink team document. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. Like I said, I use this training for folks that we're trying to really just have them understand what they can expect being a reviewer. You can see that the requirements are still in there. The text box is not done. You know, we're still waiting on it's not very robust. Sample red team document. Requirements are gone. We've added some metrics in there. We have a risk mitigation, so it's looking more mature and telling a better story. And then gold team, everything is done. You see my X's there because I took out company names and stuff. So this is done. All of the metrics, it's all fleshed out, ready to rock and roll. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about reviewer comments. I have mentioned this, leaving good comments that are helpful and not useless. So I stole that little graphic. I don't remember where I stole it from. But for compliance, if somebody leaves a comment and they're like, oh, this is not compliant at all, rewrite it. Making specific suggestions, calling out the specific pieces that are missing. From a solution standpoint, the customer doesn't use these tools, or maybe just providing some more insight about the tools. This is again why we want to have good technical people as our reviewers, because they can identify stuff like this. Approach comments and just overall writing comments about the style of writing. So an unproductive comment is the text box is off. This is a gap. I'm not sure this is the right graphic. Not a detailed enough result. I'm not buying it. Let's be more specific. Thanks. Being more productive is by asking thought-provoking questions to the writers to help them get to the next level. Maybe calling out something that we could use, a tool like a table, or even making a suggestion for a graphic to make a section easier read or easier scored, or getting our message through in a more clear way. Okay, so we want to really help our reviewers leave us the right feedback that we can then take and be actionable about. Lisa Pafe is a good buddy of mine. She wrote a really cool blog about how good are your proposals, and it talks about responsiveness, which I think is a neat word that we don't talk about enough, right? Because compliance is always first. We know that. I've said it 500 times now. We always use the word compelling, right? We're making a case. We're trying to be persuasive. This is almost, a sales document. We're trying to show why we are the better choice. But sometimes we forget, and it's funny, I'm actually working with a team right now on one of our largest opportunities of the year. And we're behind. The draft actually just dropped, and now everybody wants to start working on it. But we have a really neat offering. I'll just start by saying that we have a really neat offering that would be able to provide this customer some amazing innovation and really help them take their mission and what their project and everything to the next level. But that's in time. That's over time, because there would be a lot of transitional things, software updates, just different transitions that would have to happen across the program in order to ramp this up and implement these innovative pieces. So it is not a, we're going to be able to do this for you tomorrow proposal. And they've been so super hype and excited about telling the government all about what we can do for them that we haven't even spent any time talking about what the program looks like today and how we're going to tell them that we can come in, because we're not the incumbent. This would be, we would be unseating an incumbent. How we're going to come in and take that work over right now, tomorrow, not what we can do for them in 3 years. And I know it's exciting, but that's that word responsive. And sometimes I think we get in the weeds about not answering the mail. I mean, we think we're answering the mail because we're telling them about, we're talking about the work, but we're talking about future state or our innovative pieces, and we're bragging, unsubstantiated bragging. We need to focus on the meaning behind the current RFP words. If they have a section that says, tell us about innovation, boom, there's where we can, go to town. But providing too much detail on topics that they're not going to care about or that they're not going to evaluate, that's dangerous. So We know about compliance. I'm not going to go back and talk about that. We should not simply be restating the RFP. The offerer shall statements should not turn into we will statements. And you want to train and teach your reviewers to have an eye for those things and to call the writers out when they're falling into those traps. But we also want to make sure that we're answering the mail. And there are things that are check the box activities where they're like, let's say, you know, I'm just going to give a silly, sloppy example here, but the customer says the offer shall provide, you know, bi-monthly meetings to go over blah, blah, blah. And so maybe we don't need to write them a book about that. We can say, you know, our bi-monthly meetings will consist of X, Y, and Z, and this is how we'll engage all the stakeholders. Done. We're not writing them a manual about their biweekly, you know, meeting requirement. We're checking that box and we're moving on. So, you know, finding that balance between being responsive and determining whether it's an area that we need to really focus on being compelling or we're just responding. So these are the types of, to me, this is kind of next level reviewer training. When you invite a reviewer to participate, you're probably going to get some gobbledygook comments where they're like, hey, you know, looks like you missed the mark here. Be sure that you're answering the mail. But if you have trained your reviewers how to have this discerning eye for responsiveness and where to be responsive versus where we need to be more compelling, where we're weaving in those strengths, what those strengths are, and where they can expect to see them, then we're going to have them calling us out in more appropriate ways. It's really going to improve the quality of our proposals. The prove it, the so what. Oh, that's my favorite thing. This does it pass the so what test. You want to teach your reviewers how to do that too. If they're reading a section and we're, you know, they look at the solicitation, they're like, okay, we know the government's asked us about change management or whatever. And then we're looking at what we wrote about it. And it's like this vanilla, you could copy and paste it into any proposal for any customer type response. Then like, so what? Like why does this person care? Why does this customer care about this? What does change management mean to them? So, you know, the way that we can help prove those things, maybe we're going to just talk about our overall corporate experience, what our team does for whom and what levels of complexity, partnerships and just resources, past performance where we've done it before, the approach to how we're going to do it, not just saying what we will do, but how we're going to do it, naming the people that are going to be doing it, outlining the steps and tools that's going to take to get it done, and really those proof points. So what does it mean for the customer? Change management, you know, could mean so many different things to so many different customers. So as it relates to the customer's mission, we're not talking about how we as a company do change management at the 10,000 foot level. We're talking about it for this customer and their specific mission. What things will change? How will other things be affected by it? How long is it going to take us to do it? Where have we been successful doing it before? So we've got to substantiate what we're saying. And so we want our reviewers to go in and look for those proof points. If it doesn't pass the so what, who cares test, we want our reviewers to say, hey, I don't think that this is telling them anything of any real value or importance, but then also say, consider, you know, putting in a metric here, you know, or citing a specific product or service that we provide that will mitigate any risk or concern. Graphics are super important. We want to teach our reviewers what a good graphic looks like and what its purpose is. And you can do that either in your overall kickoff. And, you know, if you know that you've got a review team where it's comprised of a mixed bag of people, and you know that you're going to get some crazy comments, like, you know, a wide variety of comments. You have technical people, you have executive people, you have, you know, maybe some people from your BD and proposal organization that are stepping in as reviewers. Maybe you just want to have at the beginning of your proposal process, maybe you just want to have a reviewer tag up and say, hey, from a proposal management standpoint, this is what I'm really hoping to get. And then you can go over some of this basic stuff with them about expectations for every milestone. If there are areas that you know that the team is already struggling, if we're like, oh man, we need to find somebody that can write to the cybersecurity piece. And in your proposal manager mind, you're going, okay, this is a section that's probably going to get chewed up and spit out during a review. You already know these things going in, so you can teach your reviewers to have this, these eyes for these things. So looking at graphics, is it easy to digest? It's the goldfish principle, right? Can I understand what I'm looking at in 10 to 15 seconds? Is it easy to follow? Do my eyes know where to start? Is it where it belongs? You know, is it in line with the text that's supporting it? It's not duplicating the text, but it's supporting our message. We don't want to refer the reader or reviewer to a different section of our proposal to try to understand a graphic, or vice versa. We don't want to talk about a graphic on a previous page and then like wait to see it, because it loses its value. So having a good action caption. And so we want, not only are these reviewers reviewing what we've written, but they're also reviewing the art that we've put in there to make sure that it's really lending value to our overall message and proposal. And that includes text boxes as well. So I mentioned to you the tool, I mentioned to you the score slides that you can use sometimes. Let me be clear, unless you have the most mature pink team document in the world, these are not tools that you're going to use at Pink Team. Pink Team, there's still a significant amount of writing taking place. Graphics are still being, worked on and developed and tweaked. So having a scorecard or having some other method that you're using in your reviews other than comments and feedback in the document, it's not always a good fit. But that's up to the proposal manager. But I like to provide this toolkit for specifically red team and gold team reviews. There's a comment slide. So in addition to the comments that they leave in the document, we also ask them to prepare a few slides for the debrief and for the authors. And there's a couple different purposes. Sometimes if you're doing a very large proposal, maybe you're going to have a review lead. And then underneath that lead, there's going to be 3 other reviewers that have reviewed the same sections or volumes or whatever. And the review lead will consolidate just general comments that are going to be discussed on the debrief onto this slide. The debrief calls, we don't want to be on the phone for 3 hours. We want to make sure that all things that are of major concern are discussed, but the comments in the document and these leave behind slides are tools that the authors are then going to turn around and use in their recovery to make sure that everything is addressed. So a general comment slide, whether it's for an individual reviewer or a review lead, I like a comment slide because I like to document people's concerns to make sure, again, from a proposal manager standpoint, between us chickens here, cover your ass, right? We can say that we've done our due diligence throughout the proposal process to make sure that we are collecting feedback and concerns and presenting it to our proposal teams to be mitigated and to make sure that we are seeing these things get changed, updated, and completed. Okay. So a review summary score sheet. And at the bottom, I've got the typical government color review or rating, scoring. If they're not using that, maybe you update it. You can kind of make these whatever you want them to be, really. But this is a typical government scoring sheet. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you put whatever volume is being, this slide is being completed for, the section that it's being completed for. Either it's compliant or it's not. And you have these bulleted areas to write where, you might have cited those compliance things, and then an overall evaluation rating. You fill that block with the color that you are scoring it. So we're looking obviously for compliance. And then against the evaluation criteria, we are citing the strengths, the weaknesses, and any risks that we have identified. So this leave behind is a good tool, because after you've completed it a couple times, you should see up in the upper right that evaluation rating go from yellow to green, or yellow to purple, or maybe from green to blue, or whatever. And you should start to have, you want to have the idea also is to have, if you have 5 people completing this slide, that they're all kind of feeling the same thing. If you have somebody that's rated it purple and somebody that's rated it red, maybe we need to get on a call and talk about like what these discrepancies are and what we need to do to, because at the end of the day, you have these people participating in this review and completing these score sheets as if they were the evaluators. And so if you have one evaluator thinking that it's good and another one thinking that it's not good, we need to figure out how to get everybody on the same page, because that's our goal at the end of the day, obviously, and to be blue and purple. Blue, but purple's okay. And then the second slide is the quality. So you've got your kind of evaluation with your compliance and your strengths, and this is against the section M. And then you just have overall quality. And this to me is more of a, just kind of a proposal tool for our side of the house, to make sure that what we've done is clear. Is it in the order in which it's being asked for? Is it easy for the evaluator to go, okay, here's where they answered, this, here's where they responded to PWS 3.4, 3.5, 3.6. Okay, cool. I'm able to follow along and I'm able to see everything I'm looking for from an evaluation standpoint. Then we talk about compelling and responsiveness, right? Did we really do a good job of putting the messaging pieces, those golden nuggets that we want the customer to know, front and center? Did we answer the mail? And then graphics and call out boxes. Are they effective? Are they a waste of space and taking up unnecessary real estate? So this is kind of more from an aesthetics and flow and structural and proposal management kind of view, whereas the previous slide is more from like a, how's the government going to evaluate us? This is how did we do? And, does this make sense? Okay. And we can use the same quality rating with the color score. Again, the nice thing about these scoring sheets is that you can really build them out and make them whatever you want. You can add slides. You can, if there are specific parts or pieces to a proposal, maybe you're going to want to add a different scoring sheet or different components that you want people to pay close attention to in their reviews. So these slides are in addition to the comments that are left and feedback that's left in your documents. You can go over these during your debriefs. I typically use these types of tools at red and gold, and also just based on the maturity and complexity of your documents. But having some sort of scoring method can be very helpful and can help show progress through your milestones. Because by the time you send this out the door, you're going to want all these bullets addressed, fixed, updated, and you want those quality ratings that are given by your reviewers to be blue. Okay. This is like kind of if the proposal manager wants to combine all of the reviewers' scorecards and give an overall rating, you can parse it out by section or by volume. Again, these are tailored to whatever requirements are shown in your proposal. And then this is where you can group all of the reviewers. Let's say you have 6 reviewers, and so 5 of them, rated it green for the executive summary, and 1 of them rated it yellow. We're gonna do, we're gonna find the average there, and we're gonna give it a green. That yellow person, we're gonna have to get them on board and look at their score slides and figure out what they dinged us on, make those updates, and then assume that we've got them in a green now. Okay. So this is kind of a summary slide that you guys can compile all of the feedback from all the reviewers. So I'm running out of time. I was not looking at the chat because I saw that there was like a lot of comments. Sorry, I went a few minutes over. That's a long presentation. But you know, I really hope that there was at least some value for the old and new proposal people on the call. This is a training that I find very valuable to just do at the corporate level for all of your teams. So that way people can understand the purpose and the process of color reviews or just a review cycle in general.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's super useful. Again, I leave it to the audience to just type your comments on how much you love this presentation. And I leave you there. In the meantime, while you type that, there are a few questions, Rebecca. Let me ask those questions. Obviously, while you were talking about the reviews on a calendar, there were a few questions that popped up about what's your opinion on rolling reviews rather than to have fixed reviews on a certain time. What's your opinion on rolling reviews? So any thoughts on that? Maybe a weekly review of where we are with everything?
Yeah, actually, I was trying to turn my video on. Are you able to turn that on for me?
Of course. Oh, is it not?
No, it says that you have stopped my video.
Sorry.
You're controlling it.
Sorry. Now you can.
All right, cool. Hi, everyone. I love to at least just say hello after I just talked your ear off for like an hour.
Sorry, Rebecca, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, the questions was about rolling reviews. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so rolling reviews, I think are valuable in the right moment, in the right instance. Sometimes they're absolutely necessary because maybe you have, let's say you have 4 major sections that you're writing to in your proposal, and maybe you have 4 authors that are working on it, and you have, you know, different skill levels of writers in each of those sections. And so maybe you have somebody that's taken section 1, it's mature, it's ready. You have section 2, they're still waiting on a couple things. Section 3, maybe you haven't even heard from that person in 2 days and you don't know where they are. You know, so you can have like different levels of maturity, even not just within, like, you know, throughout one document. So that's a great place and instance to really use a rolling review, because it can save you some time. And it's like, you know what, I'm not going to stop I'm not going to put our entire process and proposal on hold because task area 2 or section 2 is like behind. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send these other ones out for review. I'm going to invite people into the document. That's what the beauty of having a collaborative proposal tool is. So you can, the writer can still be in there working while you have reviewers in the other sections leaving feedback. And so you don't have to pause your entire process just because. So that's a great instance of rolling reviews. You know, the one thing I will say about them is that I think sometimes proposal managers will, with a traditional review, they'll have their kickoff, they'll give all the artifacts and all the instructions to everyone. And then it's like, okay, cool. I have 6 hours until they're supposed to be done. Maybe I'm going to pop in and kind of look at things here and there, but you kind of have like this window where people are off doing something and maybe you can focus on something else. As a proposal manager, if you're going to embark on the journey of rolling reviews, you're going to have to be more hands-on. You're going to have to be in there because it's, you don't have like these chunks. It's like an ongoing thing. So you can try to set timelines and parameters, but really, you know, you haven't paused that process, you know, and stopped for like a review cycle. It's an ongoing thing. So you're still kind of in there with them. So there's benefits. You just kind of have to decide what's best for you and your team and what's really going to, at the end of the day, we always keep in the back of our mind, what is going to enhance the quality of my proposal the most? And also what's going to support my team in the best ways? Because maybe somebody really needs some feedback. They're like, I don't know where to take this section from here. So you know what? You could even do an out of cycle review. And you could say, you know what? John has hit a wall. And can I have 2 people from the review team? I know and I know that the actual review is not happening until Friday. Can I just have a couple hours of your time and pop in and take a look? Because we're having a hard time getting to red team right now.
Totally. Nice.
So you can, that's the beauty of being a proposal manager, is that it's your world. You know, you decide what your job is, to get that proposal top notch and out the door. So
100%. Rebecca, what a beautiful advice. Exactly. I think there's nothing set in stone. Look at the time scale, look at your proposal and keep it fluid. That's brilliant. Thank you, Rebecca. I think you did talk about some templates for proposal reviews, Rebecca. Obviously, if we reuse those templates for bids, what are the do's and don'ts of repurposing like the templates that we're using for the gold reviews, red reviews, or bid no bid reviews, etc.? What are the do's? What are the don'ts?
In review templates, like the scorecards that I just showed you.
Yes.
You know, again, I think that's what I was saying. That's like what the beauty of those are, is that they are meant to be tailored. You're not going to, you know, when you get this slide deck, you're not going to go steal these slides here and just go use them. You know, they have to be tailored and updated. And that's really dictated by the proposal, by the size and the scope and how many people you have participating. The more people you have participating, the more I would suggest using these kind of collection tools, because, you know, you don't want to get on a debrief call and play pass the microphone around to like 20 people and expect your authors to like retain and know all of the feedback that they were just given. It's very overwhelming. So I like, you know, I love that. I think I'm going to hang on to that. I like thinking of these as collection tools. You're collecting feedback, you're collecting information in different ways than just the comments in the document. So you can create scorecards or collection methods really in any way you want. You could even create a fillable PDF, you know, survey, if you will. I just happen to use slides because you can kind of, if you're going to do like a debrief presentation, you can consolidate them, whatever. But I mean, Survey Monkey or just Google Forms, you could even do that. And that has a really neat feature that after, you know, people have submitted all of theirs, it'll actually consolidate and collate that for you. So there's a bazillion different ways you could do this, but on large complex deals with multiple participants, I highly recommend using some tool or templates like this. And again, the big thing too is from a proposal manager standpoint, cover your ass. You're doing your due diligence. I mean, it's funny, but we have so much on the line and we are spinning so many plates and managing so many people that using tools and templates to help keep us on track, to help make sure we're collecting the right information and that we have something that we can refer to, because relying on the old, you know, brain trap sometimes it doesn't work. So it's like, oh, you know what? I think Jim made a comment about that in our red review. Did we address it? Let's go back and take a look at that scorecard or at that comment. So
totally, Rebecca. Last 2 questions before we open up for Scribble Quiz. Stay with us. I know it's time is dot, but then we'll also open up for some of our NCO friends to have a chat with you as well. So please do stick with us for the next 5 minutes or so. So Rebecca, the question was, in shorter turnaround bids like the commercial proposal, so you only have 10 days to submit a proposal from start to end. How can we bring this comprehensive review process that you touched just now? What will be the best way to look at? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, if you just have one reviewer who could be a colleague of yours, say, hey, can you just have a quick look at it before I submit? How does that work? Those 2 questions. And then
so the first question, I think you want to forget the word comprehensive. If you have a 10-day turnaround, you're not going to have a robust process like that. Maybe you're going to omit pink team and you're going to go straight to red and gold, and you're going to have just 2 big reviews. So you kind of have to figure out comprehensive in its own way. And I'm not suggesting that we don't do a good job. I'm suggesting that you really have to tailor the process to meet that timeline. You need to build out that calendar. Like I showed you on a previous slide, that proposal calendar is going to be a lot smaller and a lot busier. And maybe this is a great place to implement those rolling reviews.
Sure.
If it's a 10-day turn, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'd be a betting girl and put some money on the probability that it's not going to be a long document. If they've given you 10 days, maybe you're looking at like a 20-page document. And so, you and a small tiger team of people could do rolling reviews, could have all of this happen in that short period of time and just kind of be like a machine to get it out the door, right?
Totally. That's a good one.
And then the second question was what?
If there is just one person, like you were just asking, hey, before I submit, I'm just going to send it to a person or one person. Can you just flip it through to just see whether I'm doing that sort of informal review with one person? What are your suggestions as well?
Yeah. I actually had just mentioned that where like, especially if you have a writer that's like hit the wall and they're like, I don't, like I've written as much as I know. And I don't know if I'm on the right path or like, whatever. Maybe you're gonna, at your kickoff, you've identified who the review team is going to be. Maybe you go and grab one person and say, hey, I need an out of cycle review. Can you, be flexible, give them, say like, hey, on Tuesday, I'm going to have the author kind of like put their pen down for a little bit. Can you pop in and leave some out of cycle feedback? And I think that that's something that we should do more of, to be honest. I think that we get, as proposal managers, because we are process people and we do have to be respectful of people's time, because we do have folks on proposals that have day jobs and, stuff like that. It is beneficial in some ways to have these very, chopped out, Tuesday from, 10 to 4 is our, review window. That helps for time management purposes, but we don't have to adhere to that. I mean, we can still do those, but maybe we're gonna put together like a little tiger team review. If we know that there's one area, and I'm just gonna say it like in the technical volume, that we have significant weaknesses on, or that we have to do some fancy writing to like make it sound like we really know what we're doing. Maybe we're gonna we've identified that area needs some extra love. And so let's not wait for red team to roll around and then have the reviewers come in and be like, this is crap. And this is not red team ready. Let's mitigate that as proposal managers before that train comes off the tracks and say, okay, I see that this section is a lot more immature. Maybe the writer's struggling. Maybe we just don't know what the hell we're talking about. Let's get some additional support and resources in there. And whether that is a reviewer coming in and reading what we have so far, or maybe we pull in a writer or some other subject matter expert and say, hey, we need help here.
Totally. Thanks.
Don't wait for the train to come off the tracks, Totally. And you don't have to wait for your review window and count on the reviewers during that time block to leave feedback. So it's like a combination of like a rolling and a traditional review.
Brilliant. I think that's very useful. And there is a lot of love and support. Thank you messages for you in the chat window. I'll leave you to read it. While you read that, let's open up the Scribble quiz. Obviously, get closer to your chat. 3 questions, but this time I've actually got 8 questions, but let me pick up the best ones and get to the chat. Whoever answers gets a point, and whoever gets the answer first can access to one of our learning stuff. So are we ready? Let's go. So in the proposal team slide, Rebecca used the word for volume lead. She said volume lead, or a very interesting word, which I've never heard of before. What was that?
Oh, word? Really? Okay. So wait, I'm not supposed to answer this, right?
No.
I know the answer. Me. Choose me.
No, it's not book lead, Krishna, but it was close. Half.
Yeah, it was really close. You got half of it, Krishna. Now I'm cheating. I'm going to give everybody answers. Book boss.
Yes, that's it. That's a good one. I haven't heard it before, but that's a good one.
Book
Next
boss.
one.
I know it sounds very cool. Like I'm a book boss.
While talking about the compliance matrix, Rebecca mentioned compliance matrix shredding using technology is fine. But remember, guys, this is your Bible. What is that word? The exact word
Come, you're nitpicking now. Look, okay. Oh, somebody just said it. Hold on. Somebody already said it.
The community here is well trained, Rebecca. Don't worry, they will pick it up. But
Terry,
good try.
Terry Cooper. She's mine. Good job, Terry.
So you found there was pink, red, and gold reviews. But in that last slide where she was talking about, there was also a last review. What's the name of that review? Called the final layout review. Again, in very interesting terminology. Oh my God, that's very quick, Lydia.
They know this. There's anybody here on my team, they better know this.
That's
right.
And
we put on our white gloves and we run our fingers along and make sure there's no dust before it goes out the door.
Totally. And the last one, before we open up for the NCA members to have a chat, is at the very end, Rebecca mentioned, you know what, it needs to be easy to understand, easy to digest. And then she mentioned in passing a principle. What's that principle?
I don't even know.
What's that principle?
Wait, what were we talking? We were talking about graphics?
No, it's like at the very end, you just need guys, responsiveness. When it comes to responsiveness, you were talking about end of the day, it's talking about the attention span. People will read it quickly. So, and you use the principle. What's that principle? No, Terry, that was
the attention span of a what?
Attention span of something that floats.
You're close, Michael. You're on the right path.
Something that floats in the water.
Goldfish. Yay, there we go.
That's it. So thank you for trying. I think we have crossed the limit, but well done. I can still go on. I have 8 more questions. I have 4 more questions, but you already have crossed it. So just to wrap this up, thank you, Rebecca. We'll still be open for the NCA people to engage with you. Obviously, they are there if you have another 5 more minutes. But thank you for joining, Rebecca. Thank you for sharing, and thank you everybody for joining. Next week, we have another one, as always. Let me find what the topic is. Even I forgot. It's with I'm sure you might know even before me. Okay, good. next week we have Hold On Your Horses, Don't Ride Too Soon with Pippa Birch, followed up by a friend, Nicole Seams from South Africa. So this month actually, we have from the US, and we also have from the UK, and we also from the South Africa. So that's it. If you stay, please do stay. I will open up for everybody to talk to Rebecca. Obviously, she would love to hear from you, and I'm sure many of you would love to say hello to her as well. I stopped the recording now, but thank you for joining. And if you like it, please do share your love. And the quiz winners will be notified very soon. I hope to see you next week, the next webinar. And the recording is officially closed.